ನಮ್ಮ ಮಂಗಳೂರು ಪೊಲೀಸರು ಇದರ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆಯನ್ನು ಭೇದಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈಗ ಅನೇಕ ಮಾಹಿತಿಗಳ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಇದರ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆ ತುಂಬ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿದೆ.
Has this vicious web been played down for too long? How urgent are investigations needed ahead? Is a larger South India ISIS terror design finally unraveling?
All right, joining us now on the talking point this evening, S. Prakash is spokesperson of the Karnataka BJP, Aishwarya Mahadev, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Dr. Tara Karta is former director at the National Security Council Secretariat, and Balwinder Singh is former additional director with the CBI. S. Prakash, let me start with you. This man, Mohammed Sharik, who was accused in two separate UAPA cases before what happened in Mangaluru, surely should have been on the radar of terror agencies, anti-terror agencies, the NIA and others, Intelligence Bureau. How is it that he was able to travel to Coimbatore, to Ooty, Nagarkoil, then Mysuru, where he was living for the last 2 months under a fake identity? Isn't that a slip-up?
No, last month there was a bomb blast trial in Shumaga where two of his associates were arrested by the police. A timely arrest was made then, and this Sharik escaped from the police net, and he was off the radar. Probably he must have been off the radar once his friends were arrested by the police. Subsequently, has resurfaced in Mysore. Then he has come with a bomb with the intention of exploding it in a crowded place to Mangalore, which is become a very sensitive area with series of agitations and disturbances in the coastal belt. This PFI ban and subsequent developments, probably that has motivated him to create some disturbances and disturb the law and order, peace and harmony in the district. And fortunately,
Mr. Prakash, even in a normal case, even in a petty crime, if you're out on bail, you have to report to the police station once a week. There are restrictions on your movement, etc. Here is a man who is wanted in two cases under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which is one of the most stringent criminal laws in this country. He is moving around freely, although under a fake name, fake identity and all of that, but he's freely moving around to 5-6 different places before this blast happens in Mangalore. And it's sheer luck that this blast happened in an auto rickshaw when he was traveling alone. God forbid, had it blasted off in a market or a railway station.
No, it would have caused heavy serious damage to the life and property of the people. I agree. I don't know the provisions for the bail when he was given bail. I don't know what are the conditions of the bail when he was given. Unfortunately, he was arrested and UAPA, the court gave him the bail. I don't know on what grounds they believe that he is not a harmless fellow. Okay. And today he has been again caught in a terror activity.
Let me ask Aishwarya Mahadev, there are serious charges against this man. Not least, of course, there was this sort of trial run, if you will, that happened in Shimoga. It happened on the banks of the Tunga River, where two of his associates, Maaz Ahmed and Syed Yasin, both were arrested. Sharik was reported as absconding. Now the cops are claiming, in hindsight, there is evidence to show that he was in contact with Mateen Ahmed Taha, who is a known member of ISIS, Al-Hind ISIS. He was managing the Al-Hind ISIS activities in Karnataka. And that he also had met Jamisha Mubin, who was the main accused in the Coimbatore blast, which again happened a few weeks ago. And this man had traveled to Coimbatore. Now, fact is that radical Islamist terror in South India is a very, very real problem, best exemplified by this man, Mohammed Sharik. He was moving around freely. He was in touch with known terror associates. And yet, some people in the South tend to believe that radical Islamist terror is not a problem in the South.
Good evening, Zaka. I think first and foremost, the government here, whether center or state, seems to be far more active in jumping to action against octogenarian pastors as opposed to people who are actual real threats. First and foremost, I unequivocally condemn any act of terror, irrespective of from which denomination or which side. Anything that invokes violence and creates harm in society is something that necessarily has to be clamped down upon. And I think fundamentalist terror across the South is is something that is spreading. But the larger problem here is the very fundamental failure of law and order in this situation. If a person has cases of UAPA against them, it is not a simple bail order for them to be moving around freely. It is about a tracking and a monitoring procedure that has failed. And especially in coastal Karnataka, which is so nascent, along with Shimoga as well. And, looking at the agencies that coordinate so much with the state government for other issues, I wonder what happened in this case, because situations like this, if they get out of hand, will foment far more communal and societal instability. And you do realize this is the run up to what you are going to see as a very us versus them
Okay.
state of elections in my state. And this, more than anything else, is the government has to own up to how there was such a massive lapse.
No, but Aishwarya
How
Mahadev,
is
the
it that
point that
somebody was allowed to
BJP has
travel
been
across
making
states?
is some political parties have been having a soft attitude on terror, some even having some kind of underhand covert political understanding with some of these groups, or at least the political wings of these groups. And that unless you take a bipartisan, almost apolitical view, terror is terror, you are not going to put an end to this problem.
Zaka, I completely agree. And in coastal Karnataka, you see the ruling dispensation hand in hand with an organization they recently banned. You see two of their functionaries talking about how this organization that was recently banned, that is something that is very critical to their functioning. You see RSS, BJP Karyakartas also talking about the same. And I think now that they've made this stand, let us also hope that they do sit firm on this resolve.
Okay,
That
let me
anything that
get
causes
Dr. Tara
violence,
Karta in. You know, there was a feeling that after the PFI ban, that a large part of the activities of such folks, people like Mohammad Sharik and others, there will be a massive clampdown. There is a signaling of intent by the political administration, whether in the center or in the states, to go after these guys. But the fact, and again I keep saying this, it is sheer luck that this bomb exploded in an auto rickshaw where so far there are only 2 people who have been injured. This could have very well gone off in a railway station or in a crowded marketplace. So, with sheer providence that it ended up far less impactful or far less devastating than what it could have been. Is it time now for us to, remove the political rhetoric from this? Yes, you've banned PFI, but that is only the first step. That is not a panacea to radical Islamist terror in South India.
I absolutely agree with you, Zaka. The fact is, we've seen a considerable, all of us, I think, are agreed that there has been considerable Islamic State activity in the south, in Kerala, the Kerala module leading on to Karnataka and elsewhere. And this has been there for some time. It's not just about PFI, it's about a whole, a whole number of groups which are acting together. And this has come from areas in Kerala, which we know has been for years been extremist. But in Karnataka, Zaka, the point is that this particular area has been viciously communalized even during the Congress era. I mean, let's not forget that. There 1998, 99, there were riots. The whole thing started sort of boiling up at that point of time. Subsequently, let's face it also, Karnataka has been the worst in terms of, the burqa ban and so on and so forth. So if you choose to do such things, you can expect that an Islamic State entity will definitely come and use that place, will use the kind of dissatisfaction that there is to create chaos. So it's your choice. It's absolutely, as you said, if you can keep the political aspects out of it, these are innocent people who are getting killed. These are troublemakers who are some of them who are there. And you want to stop this, you have to take the politics out of it. It can be stopped.
Let me ask Mr. Balwinder Singh. So, 2 points that I'm curious about, and these were warning signs, and how come, no one picked on these warning signs. One, there was almost, like I said, a test run of a bomb blast that happened on the banks of the Tunga River in Shimoga. It was an experimental blast. In fact, 2 of his associates were arrested. I don't know why he was not, when already he should have been under the radar of the agencies for 2 other cases under UAPA that he was wanted for. The second one, the fact that he was able to stay under a fake identity, or at least use the identity of someone else and someone else's Aadhaar identity to stay on rent in Mysore for a good 2 months, does raise some very serious questions. Is it so easy to fake identities in this country, to fake Aadhaar cards in this country, that a terrorist can live as though he's a railway government employee? That's the ID of the person that he impersonated or that he faked. A government railway employee for 2 months in Mysore, and from there he goes to Mangalore and this blast happens.
Yeah, stealing the identity of persons is actually very easy. It's extremely easy to steal the identity, fabricate an Aadhaar card, change the photograph. Nobody verifies when they take a tenant that whether this Aadhaar card is genuine or not, and they have no means of verifying it. And when it comes to your question whether operationally the police is equipped to keep surveillance over all people who have been identified to be linked with terrorist activity, I think we really need to upgrade our operational capacities in every state. And that's a problem we face everywhere. You know, if there are hundreds of supporters, people who provide logistic help, it's not as if each person who is involved in a terrorist offense can be kept under radar all the time. It is operationally not possible. So ultimately, police agencies with their limited resources tend to prioritize it. And in that process, many people escape the net. So it's a question of operational capacities, the manpower, the technical capacities, the technical capacity to keep surveillance. All those, I think we really need to understand that South India faces this problem in a big way, and there is need for upgradation in every sense, human resources as well as technical upgradation.
So where is the problem? Because we are led to believe that one part of the problem is also political. Certain political parties don't want to be seen as, you know, going overboard with these measures because it upsets a certain vote bank. How much of this problem is political, and how much of it is actually from a technological/technical point of view, lack of resources, or whatever you were referring to? Because the spin that's being given is that, you know, soft on terror is the reason why we're seeing this in South India.
I fully agree with you that terror has to be above politics. You cannot have a political party supporting terrorism, and that I think is absolute no-no. There is need for creating an environment in which we have no tolerance to terrorist or even sympathy towards terrorism in this country. You know, look at the profile of this gentleman, this person. I will not call him a gentleman. He's a BCom graduate. And if you look at previous cases also, profile of persons involved. Now, what is it that is creating an environment of indoctrination among educated youth? I think that question has to be addressed at the policy level. And how do we address this issue? It has to be addressed both at political level as well as at the intelligence and law enforcement levels. So that issue has to be tackled, but operational preparedness, operational capacities have to be upgraded. Coordination between agencies, we have to work more on it, both between center and states as well as between neighboring states.
Okay.
Entire South India is affected. For that matter, entire country is affected.
No, S. Prakash, the fact is that, as Tarakarta also said, if in Karnataka you are having this hijab debate sometimes, halal debate sometimes, you know, are Muslims safe in that state, so on and so forth. If constantly the narrative is this, then some of these educated youngsters are going to end up doing things like Mohammad Sharik. Of course, the fact that the security agencies let it slip needs a very serious investigation. How is it a twice UAPA charged man was allowed to get out of their radar? But the political argument that's being made is, if you're constantly going on hijab and halal narrative, then there will be a backlash to it, and sometimes the backlash can take this form. Also, you know, when PFI was banned, BJP leader after BJP leader said, this is the biggest dent against terror. After that also we are having terror attacks.
What was the motive for the cooker blast in Tamil Nadu? Recently, in the Coimbatore, similar incident happened. Was there any debate about hijab there? Was there any debate about halal there? It was not there. The government there was not even willing to accept it was a terror act. and it took 4 days for the NIA to enter the investigation arena. Why did the Tamil Nadu government delayed so much? There were several terror activities have happened across the country at several places. Do you mean to say only in Karnataka, only because of halal and hijab debate, this incident is happening and it is justifiable? And here in Karnataka or in India, unfortunately, the fight against terrorism is looked upon as a communal agenda. And political parties, they do not consider the life and property of the human Indians are paramount, but they look at it as a vote bank is most paramount, and they stand by it. They even create a parallel narrative that there is a saffron terrorism in India. It is this way they are strengthening the hands of those elements who are out to divide the nation, who are out to create disturbances in the country.
No,
and
so,
the party,
so
which
be,
the
be
opposition
specific,
party,
be specific, Prakash Aure. Who are you accusing of treating this as a vote bank politics, or who are you accusing that
So
for some people vote bank is more
opposition
important than
political.
terror? Be specific tonight.
No, I will not point out one political party. It is many political parties in the opposition they jump to the support of these terror elements when the government takes a very strong measures. They even opposed bringing UAPA Act. They want a softer law to try the terrorists. They give several examples that the existing law is inadequate to try all these terrorists. And why this mindset strengthen the hands of those elements who are creating problem for the nation's
Aishwarya
security.
Mahadev, without naming any
Unless they
political
need to
party, he's saying many opposition parties have taken this soft on terror approach, as a result of which people like Sharik tend to get away with it. Like if he was arrested under UAPA and kept under watch of the security agencies for that case that got registered in 2020, subsequently he got bail in that case, but I don't know why he escaped the radar of the agencies. But the larger point that Mr. Prakash is making is that it is an atmosphere, an environment of being soft on terror that allows these people to think that they can get away with it.
You know, Zaka, dodge and deflect seems to be obviously the BJP's playbook when it comes to having no answers for a breach and a serious security lapse. Because let us talk about the reality today. They have a government here, they have a government in the center, they're a double engine sarkar. They have this huge push about somebody's 56-inch and red eyes about national security and how they're going to weed out any form of things that stand against national unity and is a threat to internal and external security of India and her borders. And you see that this is happening right underneath their nose in a state where they have a government as well. Mr. Prakash has no response for that breach or that lapse of security, especially when somebody who's in a UAPA case and also twice over should have far more surveillance, and that has not happened. And today what he's going to talk about is people soft on terror. I'm sorry, when it comes down to, if you're pointing at my political party, when you made these big fundamental fantastic moves of banning organizations, did the Congress oppose it? No. We said you should have done it earlier. If you had sufficient proof, why don't you do it earlier? Why don't you have far more thorough exercises? And you have a double engine sarkar to do it. They did it a year just close to elections for their own benefit. Zaka, their playbook is literally this. They have nothing to answer for their lack in national security. So they're going to make it an us versus them. They're going to make it a communal sort of debate. And that is what is dangerous in society. When you asked him that question, the fact is, when you create this idea of victimhood and vilification and ostracism, you're obviously going to push either side of the spectrum on whichever faith or religion, you're going to push people to be far more extremist. And this is a self-fulfilling prophecy in the way that they're acting. And the minute you paint it this way, you further vitiate these already sensitive areas. And the BJP doesn't care because this is literally their only electoral plank. This is merely a national security failure on the part of this double engine sarkar, and the BJP wants to paint it in a color and an angle.
Let me ask Dr. Tarakarta, we are given to understand by the police that many people, including this Mohammed Sharik, learnt about making bombs by videos that were shared on the internet. We are given to understand now by the police in Mangaluru that 2 batteries of 9 volts each, switches, wires, matchboxes, and other material were ordered on Amazon, and anyone can buy these timer relay circuits that are required to make bombs on any online platform. The point is I agree with what Mr. Balwinder Singh is saying. You cannot, have surveillance on every single individual of suspicion. But if it is going to be so easy to make a bomb, you can look up for a tutorial on the internet, then how are you going to stop the next Sharik?
Actually, it's not that simple. I mean, the ones which you see on the net is lots of, which is probably why it exploded in the first place. I mean, there's nothing like online training where you have handlers teaching them, face to face. That actually works. This online stuff, a lot of it is well, it's not the best. But it is what I entirely agree with this with the previous speaker, that it's almost impossible, given the social media, given the kind of hatred there is. It is almost impossible. You can't really blame either the police or the security agencies. It can't be done, except what you said, that this person was already under suspicion. I would have thought that somebody would be keeping an eye on him. But the point is, coming back to what Mr. Prakash said, you've seen an uptick in violent incidents in Karnataka. There is no way that you can get around that.
Yeah.
I mean, ever since that hijab ban and everything, I think there have been about 12 murders. And who are these people? These are innocent people being picked up. The violence, the hatred is stoked. Did the Congress do it? Yes, they did. And I entirely agree with Mr. Prakash also. You cannot give, terrorism a religion. Terrorism is terrorism and it has to be handled as such. So the only way, given that there is so much available on social media, given that there is so much of hatred being spread on social media, your only way to stop this, if both political parties, for God's sake, sit together and stop the stoking of hatred.
Okay.
And that is what needs to be done.
Mr. Balwinder Singh, Sharik was supposed to have gone to Coimbatore in the first week of September. The Coimbatore blast, the attack that happened on the BJP office there, happened after that. He's also supposed to have obtained through another Aadhaar card, another identity of another person, a SIM card while he was there. You heard a moment ago from one of the speakers saying how reluctant the Tamil Nadu state government at that time, at least in the initial days, was in giving that case to the NIA. They initially dismissed that as a cylinder blast. This man had connections with the main suspect, Jamisha Mubin, who was killed in the Coimbatore blast. He's the prime accused in that blast. He also had links with Mateen Ahmed Taha, who's said to be a member of IS, Al-Hind ISIS, and somebody who's living in exile in Dubai. If all of this was happening, if he had links to what happened in Coimbatore, if he had links to a known ISIS operative, how is it that he was able to carry out all of this? He was going around halfway across South India, from Shimoga to Mysore to Aluva in Kerala to Nagarkoil, Ooty, Coimbatore, all over the place. And his movements went undetected.
You see, I'll just repeat what I said earlier. There is need for upgrading our capacities to gather intelligence, both human as well as technical. Now in hindsight, we can talk about this individual. There will be many such individuals who are moving around, and we may not be having capacity to keep surveillance over those people.
But what then is the way ahead? Because obviously, like you said, there are budgetary constraints. There may be even political constraints. There may be logistical constraints. But we can't afford to have another terror attack. Like I said, it's sheer providence that this pressure cooker blew up in his face. What if he was successful in getting this up to a railway station or getting this up to a crowded market?
Yeah, it has been. Yes, I fully agree. It's a case of the city being very lucky, because this blast may have occurred in a crowded area or was intended to be blasted in a crowded area. So there is a definite need for upgrading our resources. I don't think political constraints exist. Most of the constraints are operational in nature and capacity constraints.
Okay. S. Prakash, I'll give you the final word. Mr. Singh saying that capacity constraints, technical constraints, but not political constraints. So when you blame the opposition, that's not quite accurate.
No, blaming it becomes a political. Whoever, if I blame or the opposition blame. But please observe, in the last 8 years, the terror activities beyond Kashmir has reduced to a great extent. One or two minor incidents have taken place. Certainly, the vigilance against terrorism has increased. Several newer systems have been implemented, and investigation agencies, particularly NIA, are on their foot. In Karnataka itself, in the last 1 year, 7 to 8 suspected terrorists have been nabbed. They have been taken into custody by the NIA, Ramnagar, Shivamogga, and even in Bangalore, there have been arrest made in several cases.
Okay.
It clearly shows the police are on, investigation agencies are on track. And so this one incident, I agree, they should have been kept a nab on this person. And unfortunately, the accident occurred and many lives were saved.
Okay.
Putting the
S.
blame
Prakash,
on the
Aishwarya Mahadev,
investigations will be
Mr. Singh
unfair.
and Tarakarta, thank you for joining us. We'll see how the story plays out, both in Karnataka and in wider South India, because yes, politically speaking, the government did ban the PFI, and at that time it was said that that's a big dent on terror, but however small or however limited impact these smaller attacks have, whether it's in Shimoga or whether it is in Mangalore, what we saw, we cannot depend on sheer luck or providence that what could have been a larger attack got resulted in just a smaller one, because you never know. You never know about the next Sharik. You never know about the next Mangalore attack. It could be much bigger than the one that we saw on Saturday. So let's hope and pray that our agencies as well as our politics is geared up for that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, talking about terror and terror sympathizers, the controversial Islamist hate preacher Zakir Naik has been invited by Qatar to be a special guest during the FIFA World Cup 2022. It sparked massive outrage here in India. Why should someone who has defended Osama bin Laden in the past be invited for the biggest footballing tournament, or at least the invitation seemed to have timed with the biggest footballing tournament in the world? I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, that story. Welcome back. Controversial hate preacher Zakir Naik has been invited to the FIFA World Cup 2022. Qatar says the government has not officially invited him there. It's at the behest of an NGO who has sponsored him. The move has sparked massive outrage here in India. Zakir Naik is banned and is a fugitive here in India at a time when Delhi has been very vocal about hate speeches given by Zakir Naik. Doha seems to have rolled out the red carpet. He will be giving religious sermons during the course of the FIFA World Cup. Now, the same man is involved in money laundering cases here in India. He's also a most wanted person in Bangladesh. The big question we're asking tonight, why invite a man known for his anti-Hindu and anti-India views to an international platform? Will the government of India confront Qatar and ask them to remove Zakir Naik from that country? All right, joining us here in our studios, Feroz Bakht Ahmed is former Chancellor of the Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Atikur Rahman, Islamic scholar, Wasiq is a writer and commentator and a counter-extremist analyst, and Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, also joining us. Mr. Feroz Bakht Ahmed, should the government of India confront the government of Qatar and ask how and why a most wanted man, a hate preacher, is being invited there as a guest for the Football World Cup, even if the government of Qatar is saying it's not an official visit where the government of Qatar has invited him. Somebody in an individual capacity has invited him.
Absolutely, Mr. Jacob. And I would also like to, ask from the government of India as to why our Vice President, Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, he shared the platform, he shared the function with that man who has been banned not only in India, since 2016, but in many other countries. The person who actually incites, provokes, misleads and misguides the younger generation of Indian Muslims and others, why was he invited by these people? Now, he said, I heard one of his videos in another channel, he said, football, according to some Islamic expert, is haram. I also think it is haram. Now, what kind of, ludicrous and funny things he is saying? I mean, there is no connect between football, Islam, Hadith, and in fact, he has no proof from the Holy Quran or from the 20,000 Hadiths, which actually say not only football, any other sport which is haram. And these are the people who say when Sania Mirza plays in Hyderabad, they say she should play in burqa. When Tajammul Hussain, who is actually the world kickboxing gold medalist and world champion, they say, okay, she should also wear a burqa and a hijab.
Okay.
Now, what kind of people are these? Negative. And finally, just give me 5 more seconds, Zaka Sahab. Qatar is a country which I do not know. When Nupur said something which was very, very bad in taste against Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they in fact, they did away all the stuff of India from their malls and markets.
Yeah.
Now they are inviting the same man. I do not know whether they are compensating, but this is not done. In my personal capacity, will write to the ambassador of Qatar in Delhi that they should not allow this man for these religious sermons and homilies.
Atikur Rahman, the question is that what Mr. Bakht said is right. When the Nupur Sharma episode happened, and none of us here on the panel are justifying what she said, but Qatar was the first country that summoned the Indian ambassador. There was this boycott Indian products movement that had started there. They were at the forefront of making the Nupur issue an international one. If they can be holier than thou and sanctimonious, if you will, about the Nupur Sharma episode, then why should India take this lying low? I mean, they can say that he was not a government invitee, Atikur Rahman, but that doesn't cut ice. He was there in the opening ceremony.
Qatar also gave
Yeah, let me ask Atikur Rahman, please. Yeah, let me ask Atikur Rahman. Mr. Bucks, please.
Hindu
Mr.
goddess,
Bucks,
this is
let me
very
ask
important.
Atikur Rahman, please. Thank you.
Zakka, this is very important. This is very important, Zakka. On the Nupur Sharma episode, I had on all the platforms said that she should be pardoned. Equally, I would say that Zakir Naik getting invited at FIFA, either officially, unofficially, he should be heard by the people if he repeats the offences. And I repeat, if he repeats the offences against other gods and goddesses, he is committing a crime, because Quran calls for that no other god should be reviled. Allah commands, no other gods be reviled, because in ignorance your God would be reviled. So he is against the tenets of Islam. Let him speak. If he repeats the offences, you cannot punish a person in perpetuity in the same manner as I called for pardoning Nupur Sharma. What she said, she was right within her rights.
Okay.
Let her be explained the correct position of Islam and Prophet.
Let me ask Ashok Sajanhar. You know, the point is, Qatar is saying that, look, this was not an official invite. The government of Qatar has not invited him. He's there because some NGO has sponsored him, and he's come there to watch the World Cup and also give religious sermons during the time of the World Cup. Does that cut ice, Mr. Sajanhar, as a former diplomat? Should India diplomatically take this up with Qatar?
Thank you very much, Zaka. I don't think it cuts any ice, because it is the responsibility for hosting the World Cup has been given to Qatar, the country. It has not been given to an NGO. So any platform that is being provided to this person to address visitors and delegates and teams that have come from outside, that is the responsibility of the Qataris government. An NGO might have invited him, but obviously any NGO which does not receive the patronage of the government cannot provide a platform where he is going around. And I read a report also, he has converted some people to Islam. So I don't know what is really happening. Is it for preaching? Is it for proselytization? What is it that he has been invited to do there? So definitely, I think this is most condemnable. This is deplorable. The Indian government
can
should
I ask you one thing?
Up.
When the Nupur Sharma episode happened, Qatar, issued a démarche to the Indian ambassador and asked for an explanation. The Indian government at that time said they were trying to make the distinction that she didn't represent the government; she was a party spokesperson. Here, can the Indian government also say, this distinction that government did not invite him, but some NGO did? That's rather tenuous. Should India summon the Qatar ambassador and ask for an explanation?
I don't think that this argument holds water at all, because this is an official function of the government of Qatar.
Yes.
After all, they have invested billions and billions of dollars in constructing all these stadia, preparing all these villages for the FIFA Cup teams, etc., etc. So I don't think they can really wash their hands off that. We have nothing to do with this visit. After all, ensuring security, making all the other logistical arrangements and bandobast. That is the responsibility of
give me a moment. Waseek is also waiting. Waseek, questions are also being asked. Mr. Zakir Naik is not just a wanted man, a fugitive here in India. He's also wanted in Bangladesh, because the people who carried out the Dhaka Cafe attack had said that they were inspired by his speeches, and so he's wanted for that attack in Bangladesh as well. Malaysia, where he had sought refuge, had at that time said that till his cases are adjudicated upon, his extradition matters are adjudicated upon, he will not be allowed to travel. How did the government of Malaysia, the aviation authorities in Malaysia, allow Zakir Naik to travel as though he's a free man? He's not.
Well, absolutely, he's not a free man. In fact, he's a wanted fugitive, and the way that the Malaysian government and the Qatari government have acted is nothing more than a slap in the face for Bharat. Look, this guy has been accused of money laundering and hate speech, and these are serious allegations to which he should answer for. And the fact of the matter is, Bharat provides a constitutional right for the accused to defend themselves. Now, either Naik doesn't believe in secular laws, which probably doesn't come as a surprise, or there is some truth to these claims. And he knows that if he would get punished appropriately and proportionately in Bharat if found guilty, and it's very likely that he would be found guilty. Now, one of the points that you made is that the Qatari government didn't officially invite him. That's fine, but they can officially extradite him back to Bharat. And the fact that they're not doing that, and the fact that the Bharat government aren't putting pressure on there, speaks volume. We need to get this guy back into Bharat and put him on trial because he is a wanted fugitive.
Now, the argument that's being made, Mr. Bhakt, is that the Interpol Red Corner notice that India had sought against this man did not come through. Interpol found some technicality and they said, we're not issuing a red Corner notice against him. Therefore, government of Malaysia and government of Qatar can argue that he's free to travel.
See, I am not going into the hobnobbing of this red corner, black corner or blue corner, whatever it is. Since he has been banned in 5 or 6 countries, India included, and certain other countries included, he should not have been allowed to travel. However, all over the world, and especially in India, there is a lobby that supports the movement of this man. Now, this man is very arrogant, and because of him, Islam and Muslims are under scanner, right? Because the way he says, oh, Islam is the best religion, this verse says this, so therefore the verse of that particular scripture, it is denied. Now, this is not the way, this is not the way of Prophet Muhammad, and we Muslims all over India and all over the world, in Qatar also, we are not going to learn our Islam from Zakir Naik or any other person like him, like the Owaisi brothers. We are going to learn it from Allah, from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Holy Quran. I do not know. It is very ludicrous and ridiculous on the part of Qatar government, though they have done a remarkable thing. This is the largest, biggest sporting event. And one more thing, when there was World Cup in England or in Italy, they never invited the Pope. They never invited anyone from the church. When such competitions are held in India, they don't invite Guru Ramdev. They do not invite some people connected with religion. I respect and regard religion because I also come from the family of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who was a great person as far as religion is concerned. But football and religion has nothing to do. In spite of the fact, I do not know when this man has said that football is haram. What is all this happening in Qatar?
Atikur Rahman, why should, if you're there, why should religion and sport be mixed? Atikur Rahman, the point is that if you want to keep sport, play sport for sports reason. Why? There's no reason why you should bring in religion into that. What is this whole idea about giving religious sermons during the course of the World Cup? It's not religious sermons that's how Doha bid and won the chance to host the FIFA World Cup. It was to showcase the country, to showcase their infrastructure, their sporting developments, their sporting talent, not for religious sermons.
Zakka, this can be best explained by the Qatar government or any of the diplomats. But one point we are missing over here, as you asked initially, this is a good chance to expose Zakir Naik if he is, preaching in a radical sense. Let him preach there. Let him have his say. Then the world will watch. If he is repeating the offenses against any of the gods of either Christians or other faiths, we can expose him. Let him have a platform. Diplomatically, we are too strong to handle such things. Let him have his say.
Ashok Sajanar, what about the view, and maybe I don't necessarily agree with this, but Mr. Bhakt's view was, why should the Vice President, particularly when the Vice President was on an official visit, he's India's representative for the opening ceremony, he was there as part of the audience, to have this kind of a fugitive, a most wanted man as also part of the audience. India should have raised a diplomatic stinker. If nothing else, the Vice President should have walked out.
I don't know, Zaka, whether a walkout under those circumstances would have been appropriate, because I don't even know whether the Vice President would have known that Zakir Naik is going to be present there, or where is he going to be present, because if he is, meaning is he an official invitee there? I don't think that there would have been advance information that would have been available. He has gone to represent a country, and I think it's basically the responsibility in my view, of the Qataris government to make sure that its guests are not put in any uncomfortable position. After all, you know, this man, to say the least, he's a very controversial figure. As it's been said, it's not only in India, but so many other countries that his sermons are banned.
You know,
you mentioned about
I want to
Dhaka
I want to ask one question. You know, an equivalent would be yesterday at the opening ceremony. I think Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi Crown Prince, was one of the chief guests. He was the big guest of honor, as it were. If the government of Qatar or an NGO or whoever it was to invite the family of Jamal Khashoggi as part of the audience, would the Saudis brook it?
Absolutely. I think you have a very valid point here. Meaning, of course, inviting MBS and, extending all this, giving him the chief guest status, etc., etc. That is a political decision they have made because of the fact that all the Gulf countries had ostracized Qatar a few years ago in 2017 or something. So this was their way of also of making up with the Gulf countries, particularly with Saudi and this. So I think it is very insensitive on the part, to say the least. And why invite such a controversial person for saying anything of this nature, even if you want him to talk about religion, which is definitely, when people say sports
Mr.
and
Bhatt
politics
here
should
in the
not be
studios
mixed.
has a question.
Similarly, sports and religion cannot be mixed also, because sends out
if you
a
are
very
listening to me, I have
message,
a very humble question for you. You are a very senior diplomat. You have served the nation in maybe quite a few countries. But my question is very straightforward. You just said that the Qatari government had its own way. Fine, well said, right? They invited him. He is a person who is not in the good books of India. At the same time, India also, sir, has its own way. India could have registered her protest that no, this is a man who has been banned for many unwanted activities, maybe terror activities, maybe for
Zaka, you want me to respond to that question?
So India could have at least registered a written protest against this man with the government of Qatar. What are your views on this, sir?
Zaka, would you want me to respond to that?
Yes, please, yes.
Okay, let me respond. The last word on this issue has not been written so far. I'm sure that the Indian government is going to take it up. I am quite certain that Indian government is not going to take it lying down. Remember, my response to the first question was definitely the Indian government should take it up with the Qatar government that, this is being very insensitive and unmindful of Indian laws and Indian the situation, the fact that he is a wanted person, he is wanted for money laundering, he is wanted by ED, by the Enforcement Directorate and many other agencies. Okay. So I don't think that the Indian government is going to let it pass.
I'll give Wasiq the final word. Does it also call or bring to attention the need for countries around the world to ensure that most wanted folks, whether it is for financial crimes, whether it is for spreading hate speeches, who seek refuge in other countries, in third countries, there has to be a common minimum mechanism. Depending on Interpol, red corner notices is not going to cut it, because Interpol is stuck in this whole bureaucratic process. And in any case, you have red corner notices against all kinds of suspicious characters, but they've sought refuge. Let's say, for example, a Nirav Modi and a Vijay Mallya have sought refuge in England. A Zakir Naik has sought refuge in Malaysia. Does this call for a common acceptable code amongst countries around the world, that if there are most wanted fugitives running away from the law in one country, then all countries should do what is required to ensure that he or she faces justice in the country where the said crime was said to have happened?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think Atiq Rahman made a interesting point that if he's given a platform, then we can expose him. But he has been given a platform and he is being exposed. He's already got substantial evidence against him for being a preacher, an alleged preacher of hate. And the fact that we need those common boundaries between these nations who are fighting against extremism, terrorism, whether it's from the Muslim Brotherhood or ISIS or Boko Haram, we need to have that common mechanism. The fact that Qatar government didn't invite him but could do something about him being there and not giving him the platform speaks volumes in terms of where their loyalties lies in terms of dealing with extremism and terrorism. So I think there are serious questions that need to be asked of the Qatari government and how serious they are in terms of dealing with extremism and terrorism. Because at the moment it doesn't seem like that.
The extradition matter is still pending before a court of law in Malaysia. It was incumbent upon the Malaysian government to ensure that that matter is first adjudicated upon and then he be allowed to travel. The fact that he was allowed to travel even when an extradition matter is pending before a court of law there simply shows that even the Malaysian government couldn't care less.
Precisely, and that's the thing. If Qatar, are not taking Bharat seriously, it doesn't look like Malaysia either taking him seriously, and it's just showing what a joke this is and how they're legitimizing this person who is alleged to be a hate preacher and has inspired terrorist attacks.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much to all our guests. At the very least, not only because of the fact that Qatar was at the forefront of the summoning of the Indian ambassadors and others where the Nupur Sharma episode happened, but also for the fact that you can't have double standards. You can't have a case where the government of Malaysia, the government of Qatar think that inviting a man who's a fugitive, not just here in India but also in Bangladesh, is okay, it's kosher, but India should not react to it. That is absolutely not acceptable, not in this day and age. That's a wrap. Mari Shakil joining you with News Episode.
You're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. Today we put the spotlight on the Shraddha Walker murder case and raging battle in Gujarat. But before that, we are getting you some piece of breaking news on the probe into the Mangalore blast. These are some inside details of the nexus at play. Top sources close to the investigation reveal that there could be a link to the Shimoga blast. Sources say that the Shimoga terror module could be behind the blast, and as per the sources, the main accused, Sharik, is an absconder in the Shimoga case. There is a common modus operandi in both these cases, and the makeup of the bombs in both these cases is also similar, which is phosphorus, sulfur, potassium nitrate mix, which was used in these bombs. Nuts and bolts were added for maximum impact. The big question that emerges is, was Shimoga a trial run for Mangalore then? The investigation has also revealed Sharik's movement. On September 3rd and 4th, Sharik in fact visited Coimbatore. He moved to Nagarkoli, Ooty and Aluva in Kerala. He procured a fake Aadhaar card in Hubli and SIM cards in Ooty. Sources say that he returned to Mysore in the same week, the last week in fact of September. He assembled the IED over 2 months in Mysore. Cops suspect Abdul Talha to be Sharik's handler. Now, Abdul Talha is an ISIS suspect He was raided by the NIA, that is National Investigation Agency, in May. And Talha is absconding. The NIA has announced a 3 lakh bounty. Arunima is giving us all these details. So, Arunima, with every passing hour, the details that are emerging is of a larger conspiracy, that there is a link to Coimbatore blast, and now we are being told about Shimoga as well.
So as far as the Coimbatore blast goes, investigators are not clearly spelling out. They're being cautious. Prima facie, if you see, there are similarities in the two cases, both inspired by the ISIS. The kind of explosives used are similar in nature, even though in Coimbatore it was very rudimentary. The IED had not really been put together. The explosives were all lying separately in the car when it went off. In the case of Mangaluru, it was an IED which had been assembled. 2 cells have been found there. Phosphorus usage along with the nitrate compound mixed with sulfur means they not only wanted to create an explosion, but also perhaps make it an incendiary device, cause fire. Having said that, was this a larger conspiracy? Looks like that this was a trial run which went horribly wrong for the main accused, Sharik and his handlers. They were trying to see if by local transport they can bring about this IED which they had packed in a pressure cooker. The plan was to travel from Mysore to Mangaluru in a bus, which happened, and it went off successfully. From the bus stop there to the next stop, the auto rickshaw was to ferry them. That didn't happen, and I think the suspicion of experts is that because of the friction and the travel, heat, etc., the explosive became unstable. But clearly enough indication that this was not a one-off case. A much larger conspiracy was unfolding. We were lucky that we got saved.
And Arunima, the NIA, the IB have all joined the state police, that is the Karnataka police, in investigating this matter. What you are telling us is also of a man named Talha, who is a possible handler of Sharik. What do we know about Talha?
Yes, Abdul Mateen Talha was first, he came into the radar of the security grid back in 2020, and this was when the Al-Hindi case was being probed. His house was raided by NIA. They didn't find him. They declared him an absconder, declared a reward of 3 lakh rupees for him. Since then, there has been no news. And now the Karnataka police suspects that he could be behind this Shimoga module. He himself was from Shimoga. There is suspicion that all the bomb-making literature was sent by this man via PDF files and other videos to Sharik, who then self-trained himself, procured the explosives from e-commerce websites, from matchsticks. The phosphorus actually came by chipping off matchsticks. Sulfur came from the local chemical shop. So all these ideas, the suspicion came from the handler. Karnataka police suspects he could be in Dubai, but it's a matter of investigation as to where he is.
Thank you so much for joining me, Arunima. Shifting focus to Shraddha Walker murder case, new details have emerged. We'll be getting you those details right away. And we continue our focus on the Shraddha Walker murder case that continues to haunt the nation. And as the police continue to search in the Mehrauli Chhatrapur forest area, some fragments of jaw bones have been recovered and sent for forensic testing. On Sunday, the police, along with MCD teams, conducted searches at a pond in Maidan Garhi, where the police suspect Aftab had thrown Shraddha's skull. A Delhi police team also reached Tosh in Himachal Pradesh, where Aftab and Shraddha had stayed after eloping from Mumbai. Meanwhile, a fresh plea has been filed in the Delhi High Court seeking a CBI probe. The plea alleges that the probe is being hampered as the Delhi police is leaking information to the media, and even the crime spot has not been sealed so far. More pieces of the puzzle are likely to come together tomorrow when the police is likely to conduct a narco test on Aftab. They also have permission to conduct a lie detector test. The police so far are only armed with a confession from Aftab, but the ambit of this investigation is now growing. We are getting some piece of breaking news now. Top police sources are telling CNN News 18 that a new theory is in focus that the cause of death may not be strangulation. So this is the new twist in the Shraddha Walker murder case. Why were the police then telling us that this could be case of strangulation? Now the cops are saying that this could not be, the death may not be because of strangulation, and 10 to 12 teams from the southern range have been formed to crack this case. Over 35 items have been recovered, including bones, blood samples and gadgets, and cops are conducting an analysis of recovered travel documents as well. What sources are telling CNN News 18 is that Shraddha and Aftab's social media platforms, the applications that they used and the accounts are under the scanner, and Aftab's police remand ends, remember, on Tuesday, that is tomorrow, and he will be produced before the court.